Good afternoon, folks. Thank you all for coming out and joining us today's press conference. This is one of those press conferences where we get a chance to share very good news with our residents here in Broward County about some of the successes we've been having within the organization, but more so about the successes that we're having because of the support from our congressional leaders. Several years ago, we had to respond to enhancing the organization's technology needs when it came to school safety and awareness. We looked at building out a comprehensive real-time crime center. Our digital forensic unit has increased its workload in terms of how they manage different investigations and collecting evidence. And these are tremendous responsibilities that impact how we are having success in our criminal investigations. For many of you, you heard me speak about the success in our real-time crime center. Since launching back in 2019, we had over 4,000 plus different investigative cases. That has led to over 300 plus arrests. We modified our practices within that threat management division to start including the mental health component with behavioral licensed therapists going out in the fields and making sure that we're treating individuals that may not be necessarily requiring an arrest, but most certainly need some type of attention. In our digital forensic unit, the caseloads continue to come through, processing different cell phones and all type of technologies that are part of every crime, it seems these days, has been imperative. And many of you know that we're on a limited budget. Just finished a budget discussion with our colleagues at the County Commission. There's an increase in needs and funds, but oftentimes we can't wait, and we have to be resourceful. We have to include partners. And it was about a year ago when I first called, speaking to our congressional leaders here today, both Congressman Moskowitz and our senior congressional woman here, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and express to them, we need your support. What can you do from the federal side to help enhance funding so that we don't have a drop off in these pivotal investigative tools and practices that we're using by the minute, not by the day, but by the minute. And I was delighted to get a positive response from both of them. Not abnormal, but delighted. Over the last 6 years that I've been in office, I've had a multitude of different conversations related to planning, processing, ways to improve our community, and both our congressional leaders here have been part of all those conversations. And so what have they done? Why are they here today? This is a matter of, we submitted a request, they put forth the effort, the battling in DC to make sure that we were going to receive some funding to support these initiatives. And precisely, in terms of numerical data, what was accomplished, Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz was able to receive roughly $525,000 specifically for our digital forensics unit. That is no small accomplishment. That money goes a long way in allowing us to enhance the different technologies that we have, equipment procurement, and many other things that will enhance that unit. When it comes to our real-time crime center, the request was submitted where Congressman Moskowitz was able to receive $963,000, which is already going to be rolled into expanding the capabilities of the unit, its infrastructure, different technology needs, and personnel components. So I'm here basically to say thank you. Thank you to both of our leaders, both of our congressional leaders for stepping up to the plate, not answering the call of the sheriff, but answering the call for the people that we all work for, which is the residents here in Broward County. And so I'm delighted to introduce and allow one of our congressional leaders to take the mic first. And without further ado, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Thank you so much, Sheriff Tony. I have to say that it is really incredible that we have the kind of partnership that we do, because the bad guys in the virtual world in particular, particularly those that are hyper-focused on sexual crimes, particularly child sexual predators who use the dark web to really completely infect and create the kind of content that is very difficult to access and that is multiplied by the tens of thousands. I mean, there are literally 500 million known different computers in North America alone, where we know that there is a child victim who is the victim of sexual crimes. It's referred to as child pornography, but it is not pornography in the sense that we know of that term. It is literally crime scene photos. And having forensic specialists and the strength that we can increase right here for our local law enforcement to be able to go after these disgusting, vile predators is absolutely critical. And the fact that Sheriff Tony has made this a priority at the local level with our ITACs, our Internet Crimes Against Children task forces, that we actually led on from BSO right here in our community and have for many years, is so critical. So I am so proud to be your partner today and here to deliver $525,000 in funds to expand the digital forensics unit that focuses primarily on enhancing the department's human trafficking intelligence program. This is a unit that conducts critical, time-sensitive investigations of digital evidence recovered during criminal probes for local and many regional, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. This is all a partnership because no one law enforcement agency can do it by themselves. Unfortunately, the caseloads double each year, and these funds will provide the kind of hardware like workstations, software, a cloud-based platform, so they can boost evidence tracking and collaboration with prosecutors. And the unit investigates a variety of crimes, but a particular focus on human trafficking and child pornography. I passed legislation a number of years ago that created the largest law enforcement army that was ever put together to go after child sexual predators, called the Protect Our Children Act. It codified the Internet Crimes Against Children task forces and has targeted $30 to $60 million in funds directly to those task forces so that we can make sure that we enhance their capability to go after and prosecute and make sure that we rescue children and arrest the bad guys. So last year I was proud to lead over 60 Democratic and Republican members in a call for continued funding for activities to protect young women and girls that are at risk to trafficking. Unfortunately, as the sheriff has talked about so many times, human trafficking is a really terrible scourge right here in South Florida. We really are a hotbed because of how many tourists we have and how many major events we have, which are often a magnet for those who want to seek out that kind of activity. Just to be, a little more mild about it. I also push for more resources for the National Trafficking Hotline and all law enforcement officers to aggressively prosecute really what are modern-day slave traders who put our children at risk. And now, thankfully, Congressman Moskowitz and I have had an opportunity with the return several years ago of community project funding. We're able to deliver millions of dollars directly to our Broward cities and nonprofits, just like we're doing here today. And these funds are felt immediately, from the purchase of an apartment complex, for example, to house local veterans, to raising our local street beds so we can help curb flooding, obviously last week being a prime example of how badly that's needed, or for job training for the disabled. And we're not done. I meet regularly with our cities and our nonprofits to make sure that they know what's available at the federal level, how we can help them get access to that funding, not just during the appropriations process, but also through so many different grant programs, which we are always happy to help with. So I mention each of these things not because they're welcome good news to share back home, but because these projects really show where our values are. So know this, alongside Congressman Moskowitz, I'm going to fight every single day to bring home the resources that we need to improve the quality of life of people in our community. We're working closely together, and it's my privilege now to introduce my friend, my colleague, and fellow combatant on behalf of those who need a strong voice, Congressman Jared Moskowitz.
First, let me just thank Debbie. I mean, you're talking about someone who not only has led on the issue, she talked about sexual crimes against kids in Congress for a long period of time, but a senior member on appropriations who's been bringing money back to the community for decades, and especially in the public safety realm. I'm also happy to be here with the sheriff, who I've worked with for the 6 years that he's been the sheriff of Broward County. Last week they started the demolition of the 1200 building at Wasserman Douglas High School, where 17 innocent people were killed. And while the building is coming down, we're never forget what happened in that building, the victims, but also the failures that happened, failures that we have fixed in a lot of ways. And one of those things that we added in the Marjory Stoneman Douglas bill that I was happy to help pass was a real-time crime unit, and the difference that is now making to stop these events from happening. It's why in Congress, I helped found the bipartisan School Safety and Security Task Force with Tony Gonzalez, who is a Republican who represents Uvalde, Texas, where they had almost an identical event with an almost identical same failures that we saw in the city of Parkland. I've co-led in the reintroduction of the Eagles Act with Congressman Mary Diaz-Balart, who Debbie and I took into the building when we were doing tours to see what went on there. And I've also worked with Republicans and Democrats to introduce the Alyssa Act to help protect students in the classroom. And so, obviously we have an opportunity through community projects to put things in there, and we get to decide what our priorities are. And both myself and Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz have made public safety a significant priority in our requests. Of the 15 projects my office submitted last year, 14 of them were approved, helping bring $10 million back to Broward County. This instance is $1 million to the Real-Time Crime Center for Broward County. The center was set up, as I said, after the MSD school shooting, and it's designed to mitigate another tragedy by finding the information to help prevent it through thousands of investigations and arrests. Several of my community projects that were granted were in public safety last year. Almost $1 million for body cameras for the city of Coconut Creek, $200,000 for security cameras at our parks in Coral Springs, almost $1 million for technology upgrades to Broward County's North Regional Emergency 911 Public Safety Answering Point, and $180,000 for security cameras and safety at the Pay Center for Girls in Broward County. So, as the sheriff knows, even when I was a Broward County Commissioner, I was committed to making sure that at the county, we were getting money to public safety to help enhance our 911 response, which I helped do as a partner to the sheriff. And so, listen, these are investments that both myself and Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz have helped bring back to Broward because we support public safety. It's integral to our community. And it's a pleasure to be with both the sheriff today and Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz. So thank you, Sheriff. Thank you.
You can hear about the relationships and conversations and efforts that we've all made to work collectively together on behalf of the people that voted us into office and expect us to do the right thing for them. But that's easier said than done. With these particular Congresswomen and Congressmen, typically they're calling me also first to ask what they can do to help. And that means a lot to me. I'm in my 6th year now. I don't know everything, and there's navigating elements that must take place to be successful at this job. And I know I have strong partners. And it didn't just happen here. The Congressman Jared alluded to his time and the efforts he did when he was with the County Commission. But I can think back to when you were actually in Coral Springs and we first met when I was a rookie police officer. And he's always had that type of ambition and effort to do what's right. So with that, I personally thank you for all the support that you've allowed over the last few years and what you guys have done for our agency. Sure, in terms, it'd be workstation, different technical equipment they need to help process evidence. In the world of cell phones, that's a big component right now where a lot of backlog is occurring because of the ability to be able to process some of these cell phones, whether it be Samsung, iPhone, everything else. So some of the funds will go into that area. It would also go into some of the things that they need from just hardware components with certain type of computers. As the Congresswoman alluded to, a lot of cases that we're dealing with are very sensitive, and at times they roll over into ICAC, or Internet Crimes Against Children. So the processing element has to be very thorough, because the last thing we want to see is some sexual predator get loose or don't get fully prosecuted because of some lack of equipment, technology, or investigative practices. So that's how that's going to be used. In terms of the Real-Time Crime Center, very similar in its practices because it's a technology-based environment. Some of the things that we've seen that take place for the last couple of years, we had 30 workstations, and initially that was conducive for what we needed to get done. Well, expanding and working very rapidly and being really the only real-time crime center to support every other municipal city, because these funds are not just about BSO, this is supporting the entire law enforcement community. We're able to expand those workstations and get more personnel into that environment, hardware, computers, all the different things they use in terms of tools out in the field. So collectively between these two areas, it's going to help mitigate the work load, keep our pace up to be able to handle these different type of calls for services, and then just overall increase the skill sets that we're having when we're processing evidence or investigating criminals.